Welcome to GFN Gaming, you wholesome I'm Russ, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at DeadZone by Mantic Games. The lovely people over at Mantic sent me a copy of DeadZone 3rd edition, and in this video we're going to take it out for a spin. Getting straight into it, I feel like this game's most obvious comparison is going to be Kill Team. It's a skirmish-based game set in a futuristic sci-fi setting, and much like Kill Team, everyone in the universe is unreasonably upset with everyone else in the universe, and as such not willing to resolve conflict in any other way than murder, death, killing one another. With this preamble done, let's get into the game. Called to action by their brood mother, a horde of Veer-Myn descend upon a frontier settlement, only to find a reactionary force of the Galactic Co-Prosperity Sphere, or the GCPS, waiting for them with freshly oiled guns and thighs. Let's go. For today's mission, we're going to be playing Scenario 1, Patrol. Here are the deployment zones for the mission and the objectives, and also 8 random items have also been scattered throughout the board. In DeadZone, a game is won when a set number of victory points are achieved, and we're going for 160-ish points. The recommended victory point target for a game at 150 is 16, so we're going to go for that. Players get victory points by killing models, discovering intel, and claiming objectives. These 2 objectives are worth 2 victory points, and these are both worth 1. So that's the mission. Let's have a look at the teams taking part, starting with the Veer-Myn. Starting with the Veer-Myn, or the Veer-Myn, or however the you say it, leading the team will be the Packmaster. Master Splinter's buff older brother is going to be armed with razor claws. Coming up next and providing a mix of heavy fire and heavy combat will be 2 Nightmares. These guys seem to be a good mix of well armored and pretty fighty. One's going to be armed with twin combat drills and the other is going to have a heavy chem thrower. Next up on the list will be 4 Stalkers, kind of the combat core troops for the team. They're going to be all armed with ray pistols. Next up will be their slightly more shooty kin. We're going to have 4 Crawlers. They're kind of very basic, but they're armed with ray guns instead of ray pistols. Same as the Stalkers, but worse in combat with more range. Finally making up the rest of the team are 2 Malignuses. Maligni? These are the shootiest rats. One has a heavy ray gun, the other has a chem thrower. I hadn't checked the points limits for games before we played, so this is just everything in the box, and it comes in at around 163 points. Next up, let's look at the GCPS's team for today's game. Leading the GCPS will be the Corporation Marine Lieutenant. Pretty decent all-round stats, and he's armed with a pistol. Plus, he also kind of looks a little bit like pre-op Robocop. Henceforth, he shall be known as Murph. Next up will be 3 veteran Marines, 2 with grenade launchers and 1 with laser carbine, not rifle, it was a little confusing, plus 1 normal Marine with flamethrower. No real difference in stats, the veterans have a fight stat of 5+, not 6+ like the normal Marines. And finally, with their jetpacks and aerial deployment will be the 5 Rangers, 4 armed with laser carbines and 1 will be equipped with a flamethrower. And last but not least, needing no introduction, is the living legend, the one and only Teresa Washington. She's got a gun, a power fist. She wants you to enlist. And that's around 160 points of GCPS. Anyway, that's it for the teams, let's get into the game. To start the game, both players will roll a recon test. This is 5 die looking to get on or above your leader's recon value. In this case, both the pack leader and the GCPS lieutenant have a recon value of 5+. The Veer-Myn win the roll-off, getting 2 more successes than GCPS, and then they go on to roll twice on the recon table, rolling twice because they had 2 more successes. I got a 4 and a 7 so that during deployment I can move 1 model 1 cube, and I can also redeploy up to 2 models within the deployment zone. So let's start the deployment, starting with the Veer-Myn because they won the roll-off. In the deployment phase, and the GCPS are already starting with the shenanigans. A bunch of their operatives have the aerial deployment keyword, meaning they can deploy anywhere on the board except on an objective and at least 2 cubes away from the nearest enemy model. So they're coming down here. And this guy's going to move in my recon phase. Driven to action by the deranged mind of their broodmother, a small warband of Veer-Myn make an attack run against a small frontier settlement. However, tipped off to their presence in the area, the GCPS are ready and waiting. As the Veer-Myn approach, the GCPS descend from the skies to the whir of jetpacks and engage the Veer-Myn before they can strike. Moving in to turn 1. At the start of each round, each player rolls 3 command dice plus any extra dice given by a single model with the tactician keyword. In this case, both the lieutenant and pack leader give 1 additional die, so both players will be rolling 4 command dice. If you have more than half of your models left, you can re-roll as many of these as you wish, but only once. It's our first game, so we just kept what we got. Command dice can be spent during the game and give the players a host of free actions. A list can be found on page 16 of the rulebook. Starting with the Veer-Myn, and this stalker is just going to walk forward and take this item. It's probably worth mentioning that in a game of DeadZone, each model can perform either 1 long action or 2 short actions, or a player can activate a model and perform no actions. I'll put a list of the available actions on the screen. There are a few exceptions to these, but we'll note them as they come up. To pick up an item, a model moves through or into a cube containing an item and no enemy models and can choose to pick up an item. Models can only carry 1 item at a time, but it's counted as a free action to pick it up. This ranger has moved on to the objective and is now going to shoot the pack leader with his laser carbine. All base attacks in the game are rolled on 3 d8s, and depending on cover, positioning, and other elements, you add dice to your roll. In this case, the target is in range, however there is some cover. As such, it's not a clear shot, so the attacker rolls the base 3 d8s, looking to meet or exceed its RA or range stat, in this case 5+. So 3 dice looking for 5 ups. The laser carbine should actually get to reroll 1 failed hit with weight of dice 1, however we do miss this. Make sure you read your rules, kids. Gets a hit, the target now gets to roll its own 3d8 for its survive test, looking to hit or exceed its survive stat, in this case 5+ for the pack leader. Gets an 8, which would normally mean you roll another die, however the pack leader has made the save. Technically the pack leader has armor 1 and the ranger's weapon doesn't have any AP, so 1 success would automatically get removed due to the target's armor anyway. But that's basically it. That's how ranged combat works in DeadZone. Let's get back to the game. Back to the Veer-Myn, and the Malignus with heavy ray gun is going to sprint for 3 cubes of movement and climb onto the first floor of this stack. This ranger is going to advance for 1 cube, taking an item with him, and shoot at the nightmare. With a train in front of him, it's not a clear shot, so it's going to be 3 dice looking for 5 ups. Gets a hit with a 6+, and on the survive roll, and the nightmare does make a save with 1/7, just needing a 4 up. Spending 2 command dice now, 1 for a free shoot action and 1 to add 1 die to an attack roll, and the ranger is going to fire again, this time at the stalker. Gets a better spread with 3 hits this time. Stalker gets a bit nervous and uses its own command die to add 1 die to the survive roll, now rolling 4, looking for 5 ups. Doesn't get any, so that's going to be 3 damage going through. The stalker has only got 2 HP, so he's been taken out by the ranger. As per the mission, each kill grants victory points to the player and is determined by the victory point value of each model in their stat line. For the stalker, it's just 1 victory point. I'm up next and I want Rwenge, so I use a command dice to advance my nightmare 1 cube before activating him, and then using the sprint action to move my full 2 cubes, crashing into the ranger. If your movement takes you into a cube with an enemy model, then you must complete a free assault action. Now for the assault tutorial. As always, you're going to start with a base 3d8 fight test. Looking to roll on or above your fight stat. In this case, my nightmare has a fight stat of 4. Can you say dead ranger? Because I have moved into the cube, I get to add 1d8 to my attack, and because I am larger than the opponent, size 2 versus size 1, I get to add an additional d8. There are a few modifiers that you can find on page 22 of the rulebook, but this ends up as 5d8s looking for 4+. At the same time, the opponent must decide if they want to attack back with their own attack test or just do a survive test. This is counted as a free action. The same modifiers apply here, and the ranger is just going to choose to survive. Essentially, it comes down to your fight versus survive stat. Both of these for the rangers are a 5-up. Despite the explanation of the rules, we do miss a few things here. The combat drills do have Frenzy 1, which means I should get to reroll 1 attack, and I did get an 8, so I should get to roll another dice as per the exploding 8s rule. For the survive test, the ranger rolls 2 8s as well, so should be rolling another 2. But we were young then. The cruel touch of Father Time had yet to impart its double-edged gift of knowledge, and so we forgot. This ranger's just going to hop onto the 2 victory point objective. This nightmare with chem thrower is just going to pick up the item and then sprint towards the other 2-point objective. This grenade launching son of a gun is going to sprint to the top of this stack. This crawler with ray gun is going to advance forward and then shoot at the ranger. It's got clear line of sight, so it's going to add 2 dice to its range attack test, so it's going to be 5 d8s looking for 6-ups. Here's the other 2. Do miss the exploding 8 and weight of fire again for the rerolls, and the ranger rolls its survive test, making 2 saves so no damage goes through. Back to the GCPS, and this ranger is going to advance into this cube to get line of sight on the nightmare and fire. With clear line of sight, this is going to be 2 additional d8s, so this is going to be 5 d8s looking for 5-ups. We do sometimes read the rules for laser rifle instead of carbine, as it's pretty new to us and they don't have the weight of fire rule. Anyway, with only 1 success, the nightmare makes 2 saves and is fine. Back to the Veer-Myn, and this crawler is going to advance forward 2 cubes and then fire on the ranger on the objective with his ray gun. Clear line of sight, so that's going to be 5 d8s looking for 6-ups. Spending a command die to reroll instead of using the built-in weight of fire. Oops. Gets an 8 on the survive, so gets to roll again. And it is still just the 1 save, so that's going to be 2 damage going through, and that's enough to take the ranger out of action. And with the ranger gone, that's going to be 2 victory points to the Veer-Myn. Bit of a reshuffle by mistake, and then the grenade launcher is going to fire using his indirect frag 3 rules. So indirect means you can fire on an enemy out of line of sight. First off, you have to roll to see if you hit the target square. It's a ranged test, but you need a minimum of 2 successes against your range stat to hit the cube. Once you hit, you can then make a frag check on each target in the cube, which is whatever frag valued number of dice, in this case 3, d8s, and you're looking for a 4-up. Used a command dice to reroll and gets 1 frag hit. The nightmare makes 3 saves with an 8 but doesn't get the extra one, but it's not taken any damage. But because of the frag, it's going to scatter 1 cube. Rolls a d8, getting a 1, so the nightmare scatters right onto the objective, but is pinned. The Malignus with chem throw is just going to move forward. As it does, this GCPS Marine moves forward to take aim at the pinned nightmare on the objective and fires. With clear line of sight, it's going to be 5 d8s looking for 5-ups. Gets 3 hits with 2 8s, getting 1 more hit out of the explosions. And the survive test is rolled, but only 1 is made, so 3 damage goes through, taking out the nightmare and freeing up the objective. Taking out the nightmare will grant the GCPS 2 victory points. Back to the Veer-Myn, and another stalker is going to sprint forward. Using my last command dice to activate another model, and my stalker is going to sprint forward. Back to the GCPS, and this Marine is going to move forward and fire on one of my rat folk. No, not the rat folk. Firing on the stalker, this is going to be 3 shots looking for 5-ups. Gets the 1 hit with the laser rifle, and the stalker makes 3 saves with 2 8s, which it doesn't matter because he's already saved, so no damage goes through. Emma then uses the free fire command die but misses every shot. I'm going to move one of my crawlers forward. A little bit limited with the pistol being such a small range, but the lieutenant is just going to move forward behind the Marine. The Stalker's just going to sprint forward towards the action. This Ranger is going to sprint onto the objective. I'm going to be honest, hidden away there, I'd completely forgotten that they were there and so close to the objective, so I'm going to sprint my pack leader towards them. As I do, the living legend T. Washington moves on to the 2 victory point objective. What a babe. That's the end of turn 1, so let's have a quick look at what happened. With their aerial deployment, the GCPS are set to rack up some early points on the objectives. Let's have a look at what they scored. They got this objective for 1 victory point and these 2 objectives for 2 victory points each, taking their total up to 8 at the end of just the first turn. I'm not sure how I'm holding up so far. I'm definitely behind in points, but most targets seem pretty fragile, so there's certainly scope for either side to have a complete swing turn and score a lot. If I could kill enough models, especially those Rangers that are worth 2 victory points a kill, and end up on the objectives at the end of the turn, then I could easily pull off a turn 2 victory. I only need to get to 16. Fingers crossed, because at 8 points already, Emma and her GCPS could also easily kill enough Veer-Myn to pull ahead and win it by turn 2. Straight into turn 2, and let's get these command dice rolled and so we can get on with the killing the GCPS guys, things, stuff. Let's go. The GCPS had the last activation last turn, so it's going to automatically start with me and the Veer-Myn. I'm going to spend my assault command dice for a free attack. Attacking with the combat drills is 4 dice looking for 4-ups. I remember Frenzy afterwards, but for now I use a command dice to reroll, ending up with 2 hits. Ranger rolls 2 successes on a survive test, getting an 8 that explodes into another 8. But that's it, so no damage goes through. I then realize the frenzy roll and I roll it just in case I got an exploding 8. That's the free assault, so now I'm just going to assault as normal. Hits with everything and gets an exploding 8, which rolls into another hit. Gets an 8 on the survive, but it doesn't roll into another success, so that's going to be 4 damage, taking the Ranger out of action. With another Ranger taken out of action, that's going to be 2 victory points for the Veer-Myn. I'm then going to use another command dice to activate another model and sprint into T-dubs with my pack leader. Attacking with the pack leader is going to be 5 dice hitting on 4s. In the excitement of the 2 crits, I forget I can re-roll 2 dice with frenzy, so let's just roll the 2 exploding 8s. Ending up as 6 hits, and T. Washington fights back. Only gets the 1, and that is goodbye T. Wash. Taking out the formerly living legend gives 2 victory points to the Veer-Myn. Sprinting forward, this Marine is going to head towards the objective. Back to the Veer-Myn, and this Crawler is also going to sprint for the same objective. Looking to clear the pack leader off the objective and hopefully take it out of action, the grenade launcher fires. Has line of sight this time, so only needs 1 success to hit, and Emma uses a command dice to get another dice to a roll. Gets 3 hits and an explosion, so it lands where it needs to, and gets 3 hits and an explosion, but it ends up as 3 hits on the frag. Pack leader manages to get 2 saves, and with armor 1, that means no damage is going to go through. So the kill is off the table, but with the explosion, the pack leader will at least get pushed off the objective. Rolling the scatter die, and it's a 4, so the pack leader will be pushed to the right and pinned. Back to the Veer-Myn, and I use a command die to up my shooting, and I fire at the Ranger on the objective. 6 dice with a clear shot, looking for 6 ups. It's a terrible roll, but I do finally remember the free reroll, and I get an 8, and it gets me another hit. The Ranger makes 3 saves with 2 8s, getting another one, so no damage goes through. With shoot being a short action, I can take another one, so I'm going to advance into his cube. Entering a cube with an enemy model immediately triggers a free assault action, so let's go. 4 attacks, looking for 5s, gets 2 8s, which turns into another 8, and that's it, so 4 hits going through. The Ranger chose to do a survive test, only making 1, which leaves 3 going through, so that's going to be a dead Ranger. Killing the Ranger is pretty big for me. First off, I get 2 victory points, but it also means I'm now holding the 2-point objective. Not messing around anymore and spending 2 command dice to free shoot with an extra one, the Ranger is going to fire at the Nightmare. So this is going to be 6 shots looking for 5s. Still looking. We do forget the weight of fire reroll and the Nightmare makes enough saves. With the free shoot taken, the Ranger's just going to fire again, this time only with 5 dice. Remember the reroll with weight of dice and gets an 8, so that's going to be 2 more explosions, ending up with 4 hits. It's a sad day for Nightmares everywhere, no saves are made and it's taken out of action. Taking out the Nightmare puts the GCPS back in the lead with 2 victory points. Needing to hold some of these objectives, this Stalker's going to sprint onto the 2-point objective. Looking to deny some victory points, the grenade launcher targets this cube and fires a frag grenade, using a command dice to add a die to the roll. Out of line of sight, so it needs 2 successes, and it just gets the 1, so it's not going to hit the cube and it's going to scatter. Gets a 6, so it scatters into an unoccupied cube, so nothing's going to happen. With a grenade out of the way, I move another body onto that objective. Again, looking to deny victory points at the end of the turn, this Ranger fires on the Stalker on the 2-point objective. Clear line of sight, so it's going to be 5 dice looking for 5 ups. Gets 2 hits and rerolls 1 with weight of fire, and gets an 8. Misses on the explosion and the survive test 2 are made. The difference between the 2 rolls is 1, so 1 damage is inflicted, bringing the Stalker down to 1 wound remaining. The Ranger then moves towards the central objective. The Malignus advances to the top of the stack, uses its item to improve its firepower, and then shoots at the grenade launcher with its heavy ray gun. With clear line of sight and an elevated position, it's 6 dice looking for 5 ups. Gets a weight of fire reroll, and rolls the 3 exploding 8s but gets nothing. Gets a single 8 on the survive check, which rolls into another 7, but that's still going to be 3 damage going through, and that's going to take the Marine out of action. With the grenade launching Marine out of action, that's going to be another 2 victory points, tying the scores back up. Another Marine activates next and opens fire on the 1 wound Stalker on the objective, looking to limit the score for the Veer-Myn at the end of the round. Gets a hit, and after the weight of dice reroll, that turns into 2 with 1 explosion, which becomes 3. The Stalker fails its survive check, so is dead. And with that kill, the GCPS are pushed slightly in the lead with 1 victory point. I immediately race another Stalker onto the objective I needed to win. Realizing the early win might hinge on this objective, the Lieutenant moves out to fire with his pistol. Hits with 1, so it's not going to be enough to kill him, fails all the survive checks, but he's going to be alive with 1 wound and still on that objective. Advancing 2 cubes, the Malignus with Chem Spitter charges towards the Ranger. For my game plan to work, I need to kill the Ranger. 3 hits with the Malignus, and with just 1 save on the survive check, that means the Ranger will be taken out of action for 2 victory points for the Veer-Myn. With the death of the Ranger, I go up to 12 victory points, and as I currently hold both 2-point objectives, it should mean that I'll hit 16 points at the end of the round and win the game. With no more moves for the GCPS, I just move my remaining Veer-Myn onto objectives or towards them. And that's it, that's the end of turn 2. Let's have a look at what happened. As I suspected, it was a pretty close turn, and with enough kills and holding the objectives, it was enough for the Veer-Myn to just steal the victory. Holding both of the 2-point objectives means I hit the 16-point target at the end of turn 2, winning the game. So I'm not sure as to a normal length of a game. As 2 new players who are more used to kill team, I think perhaps we played a little bit aggressively. The game is played until someone reaches the victory point target or ends naturally at turn 5, so I guess this game was probably on the short side. So what kind of game is DeadZone? It's somewhere between beer and pretzel and a more complete, complex, competitive game. A shandy and sausage roll game, perhaps? At its core, the gameplay mechanics are relatively simple. Cube movement is fantastic. We had no issues with this ever. Line of sight is very clearly defined and easy to understand. And even at the core, the dice tests are just so similar. You roll 3 and then there's a list of modifiers that generally involve getting into a better position to fire on the target, so they kind of make sense intuitively. Elevated position, no terrain blocking line of sight, it just makes sense. It's very easy to grasp these concepts. It's the same with combat. You get modifiers to apply. Did you charge? Are you bigger? Do you have friendly models in the same cube? It all just kind of makes sense. And there's some elements of chaos added into the combat of the game, which the exploding 8s, the random items dotted around the board. It isn't something we showcased a lot in the battle as we were still getting used to the game. And honestly, for your first game, I'd probably recommend skipping items until you've learned the core rules. But you can just pick up items and kind of use them during the game to boost shooting or combat. All of this just adding to the unknown elements of the game. And in a board game, adding uncertainty really adds to the experience, for me at least. There's also a healthy choice of troops for all factions, meaning list building fans can really dig into the larger scale game's mainstay of tailoring your lists for an upcoming battle, which for me really feels like the one thing I miss from playing Kill Team. Not to dwell just on the positives, one of the most difficult things we found, which I'm sure you noticed, was differentiating between loadouts and models. In the edit, the amount of times I had to go back and change Crawler to Stalker was ridiculous. And I know it's just because we're unused to the models, but the good part of the list building was also something that we found frustrating at times, with so many choices and very little sometimes differentiating between the two. It sort of felt heightened between the GCPS. Knowing the difference between a veteran and just a Marine is not really based on the model. The models are identical. The difference between a laser carbine and a laser rifle is just in your head. Again, we know it's something that in time will be easier. This was the first time we'd ever played, but it is the one time where I noticed the clear advantage, from a gaming perspective at least, of heroic scale. Big heads, hands, and weapons does help. So, is it better than Kill Team? It's not really something after one game I can judge. It's different, and honestly, that's good. It doesn't have to be better, it just has to be a new gaming experience offering something different. DeadZone really feels like one of those games that is easy to learn and hard to master. The complexity comes in the list building, the special rules each unit has, the weapons you equip them with. It honestly feels like a great gateway to gaming. The unit's stats at brief glance look intimidating, but really they aren't. It's just that it's not what you're used to. The most complicated it gets is remembering your unit's special rules. The core game rules are easy to pick up, and not having to bring out a tape measure is a huge tick in the column of casual gaming. We've all been there. Having to use a tape measure in a game always feels like the deep, deep waters of nerddom. And I say that as a man who has measured tape aplenty in his time. If you've ever tried to teach someone a game and you see that look in their eye as you bring out the measuring tape, yeah. It's not super expensive. And I get it, I say that as someone who got a free copy from the company, but comparatively it's cheap. If you're in a position to get a demo game, try it, but if you can pick up a starter box and split it, you're probably looking at between 30 to 40 quid each to get a full team, the rules and terrain. It doesn't feel like a lot. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks as always to my patrons who help support the channel. Make sure you like the video and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.